here's another great example of the difference in times. So Daniel Ellsberg is a whistleblower against Richard Nixon, of course, with the Pentagon Papers, spends no time in jail, okay? Bradley Manning is a whistleblower that shows the murders of journalists in Iraq, based on information we believe that he has released through the helicopter video in Iraq, let alone the civilians, let alone the fact that they were rescuers. People came in to help the wounded, right? Civilians helping other civilians and reporters who were wounded, and the helicopters shot at him again. I mean, that's outrageous. That's very important information. We find out that the government knew that we'd killed 15,000 more civilians and didn't want to admit it, okay? And the list goes on, and all these incredible things that he was a whistleblower about. What happened? Cruel and inhumane treatment, according to the United Nations, when he was at Quantico, okay, for months on end, solitary confinement for months on end, stripped naked, didn't allow him to sleep at night, et cetera, and now might spend the rest of his life in jail. And in a pretrial hearing, they just said that, one of the charges on Bradley Manning is aiding the enemy, which is the harshest one and could give him a life sentence, okay? They said, so who's the enemy? Al-Qaeda. So apparently Bradley Manning was assisting Al-Qaeda.
No, but they will say that, and it will actually penetrate the mainstream media to the point where Americans will believe it. They will believe that he betrayed the country, okay, that he is a real threat to our national security. In reality, he is bringing important attention to the horrible things that our government does, and they should be held accountable for. But again, the way they're treating Bradley Manning goes back to the whole intimidation thing, right? You think other members of the U.S. military or Americans are going to speak out against the government after this?
Yeah, and it goes yet again for the billionth time in a row to the hypocrisy of President Obama. During the campaign, he said he would protect whistleblowers. No one has been more vicious against whistleblowers than President Obama. And that's literal in the sense, for example, the Espionage Act. He has used the Espionage Act, which is as harsh a law as you can throw at a defendant, against more whistleblowers than the rest of the U.S. presidents combined in history, okay? Let alone what he's done to Bradley Manning. And then get a load of this. Here was the most amusing part of the pretrial hearing when the prosecutor, Ashton Fine, was asked, okay, all right, great, so you say this guy's working with Al-Qaeda. Now, I'm oversimplifying the proceedings, but in essence, like, okay, so what do you got on him? How is he aiding the enemy? Well, he said the problem is the State Department has, quote, not completed its damage assessment yet. So, wait a minute. How do you know? Wait, we've got this guy in jail for nearly 2 years already, let alone the brutal treatment that he's received, and you're telling me that you don't even know what the damage assessment is? Then how do you know he was helping Al-Qaeda? How do you know, how did you charge him? But when you asked for the evidence, they're like, we don't even have it yet. I mean, Ellsberg wound up, so Nixon eventually got impeached, not for the Pentagon Papers, but obviously for the Watergate break-in. But there was all this pressure, like when Ellsberg did the Pentagon Papers, oh my God, it turns out our government's lying to us, and Nixon, et cetera. And then Watergate happens, oh my God, there was a break-in, there was a violation of privacy, et cetera. Nowadays, they're like, Ellsberg would still be in jail.
Yeah. You don't have a reasonable expectation of privacy anymore.
Yeah, it doesn't matter who you are. So at this point, Bradley Manning, I, of course, think that he should have been released already. Even if you think he broke the law and did something wrong, he has served a lengthy sentence for it, even before his trial has ever begun, and he has served it under horrible conditions, at least while he was at Quantico, okay? Now, on top of that, at this point, he's edging towards being legitimately called a political prisoner. Now, when I interviewed Julian Assange on MSNBC a while back, he called him a political prisoner. A lot of people are starting to call him that. He's now on a list of people who might receive a Nobel Peace Prize. Lucas, earlier, one of our producers, made a good point. He said, we always criticize governments like China, like, you have people, political prisoners in jail who won Nobel Peace Prizes. How could you? Now he hasn't won the prize yet, but he's on the list, and, but even if he doesn't win it, we've got these guys. You dare to show the American people what their democratically elected leaders were doing? How dare you? You must be punished severely. So it's grotesque, man.